The Celians were gentle. They had no warships, no weapons, no armies. They believed in peace, in kindness, in building bridges between stars, not blowing them apart. And Earth loved them for that. When humans first met the Celians, they saw something rare in the galaxy, in a sense, a quiet species who welcomed strangers without fear. For decades, Earth and Celia grew close. Trade, culture, science. Children from both worlds studied together. Scientists worked side by side. The Celians even offered Earth a seat in their sacred alliance, something no other species had ever done. But peace, as always, made some nervous, and nervous powers do stupid things. The signal, the distress call, reached Earth's deep space network at 0314 hours. It was short, just 12 seconds long. Most of it was static, distorted by explosions and interference. But a few words got through. This is Celia Prime. Under attack. Ships bearing council codes. Repeat, council codes. Cities burning. Please, help us. Then silence. The message repeated twice. Then stopped forever. Terran command went quiet. In the main war room, commanders and analysts stared at the screen. No one spoke. A few muttered the words council codes, in disbelief. The Galactic Council was supposed to be neutral, fair, balanced. They were the galaxy's peacekeepers, or so Earth had believed. Within minutes, Earth dispatched long-range drones to the Celian system. It would take time, near 18 hours, to get visual confirmation, but deep down, everyone already knew. Something terrible had happened. The wreckage 17 hours later, the drones arrived. What they saw was, ruined. Celia Prime was gone. Not just cities, not just buildings, but the entire planet's surface was blackened. From orbit, it looked like someone had taken a blowtorch to the world. Oceans had boiled. Forests had turned to ash. Massive impact. Craters suggested heavy kinetic bombardments, something only large warships could do. There were no life signs, not one. Earth's diplomatic team tried to contact the Council for answers. No reply, no apology, no explanation, just silence. Then something strange happened. A survivor at exactly 0213 hours the next night. Earth's orbital sensors picked up an incoming ship. Small, damaged, burning. Its ID tag blinked in and out. Celian diplomatic shuttle. Somehow, it had escaped the destruction. Earth granted it immediate docking clearance at Orbital Bay 7. Medical teams rushed to meet it. What they found inside would stay with them forever. Only one person was alive, a Celian male, middle-aged, wrapped in a fireproof cloak. His skin was burned, one arm missing, blood soaking what was left of his robes. His eyes barely opened. One of the human medics leaned in. "Can you speak?" she asked softly. The Celian coughed, struggled, then whispered a single word, "slaughter," and collapsed. The Council's lie that same morning. The Galactic Council finally responded to Earth's repeated calls. A hologram of Councilor Rectal Cold Scaled appeared on the screens of Terran High Command. "We regret the loss of Celia Prime," he said with practiced calm. "A tragic mistake. Rogue pirate factions have been increasing in that sector. Our patrols responded, but were overwhelmed. Collateral damage followed. No apology. No remorse. No mention of Council ships in the attack." Earth's ambassador pressed him. "Counselor, we have visual logs. The attacking ships broadcast Council military codes. This was not pirates." Vurek's smile tightened. "Codes can be faked. Ambassador, in war, confusion spreads easily. I suggest Earth remains calm. Let us investigate." Then the feed cut off. Earth's response the next hour was filled with noise, debates, rage, demands for truth. Some Terran leaders wanted to wait, ask more questions, maybe even send diplomats. But not everyone. The generals. The Admiral of the Third Fleet, Commander Arya Voss. She stood in the command chamber, silent, watching the holomap of Celia burn in red light. "Council ships don't make mistakes," she said at last. Her voice was flat, cold. "They made a choice. Now we make ours." She turned and left the chamber. One sentence followed her like a storm. "Begin mobilization." The sky changes to ruined shipyards lit up across the solar system. From lunar base to Mars orbit, massive hangars opened. Warships powered on sleek black cruisers, planetary-class dreadnoughts and stealth corvettes. They had names like Retribution, Nightwind, and Justice of Earth. No announcements were made, no declarations. Earth didn't scream at prepare. Engineers worked in silence. Marines ran drills without questions. Thousands of AI-guided drones loaded weapons into the ship's rail cannons, fusion torpedoes, and the old kinetic rods that hadn't been used in decades, the kind of weapons that turned cities into memory. The Galaxy Watch's news spread fast. Other alien races watched in silence. They had loved the Celians too. And now they were afraid. Not of the Council, but of what Earth would do next. For centuries, Earth had been seen as careful, slow to anger, always trying diplomacy first. But those who knew human history understood something deeper. When Earth goes quiet, when its fleets vanish from orbit, when its diplomats stop speaking, that is not peace, that is the warning. The first target won. Week later, a Council listening post in the Rim sector called Post Vurek's lost contact with Central Command. No explosion. No warning, just silence. A patrol ship was sent. They found the outpost intact but completely abandoned. Every system offline. Every weapon removed, every file wiped. Only one thing was left behind, a Celian child's drawing, pinned to the central console. Underneath, written in Terran English, "We remember who you killed." The gathering stormed back on Earth. Admiral Voss stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Vindicator. Outside her window, a fleet of 200 ships floated in silence. It was time she gave the order. Set course, no more warnings. As the stars shifted and the war engines fired up, a single Terran transmission was sent into council space. No threats, no declarations. Just 5 words. You opened the door first. The stars above Earth seemed quiet, but deep below that silence, in the shadows of steel and code, humanity prepared for war. No loud speeches, no government broadcasts, no angry public protests. Earth didn't shout. Earth remembered. A war forged in silence across the solar system. The lights never went off. From Mars to Europa, orbital factories ran 24 hours a day. Giant robotic arms pieced together hulls of starships. Old decommissioned cruisers were brought back online. War cores were reactivated. Massive AI brains once banned after the Titan uprising. But this time, no one protested. Because this wasn't a war for land. It wasn't about politics or power. This was revenge. The kind of revenge that grows cold, careful, and slow. The hidden projects awakened beneath the icy crust of Europa. A black site hummed with activity. It was known only as Black Echo, a place where Earth stored its deadliest technology. Weapons too dangerous for peace. Ships too powerful for peacetime patrols. Now those weapons were waking up deep in the core hangar. Something enormous stirred. The Judgment-class dreadnought codenamed Ashbringer powered on for the first time in 47 years. It was 3 kilometers long, shaped like a spear and coated in stealth mesh armor. The only weapon ever banned by all human governments. Its AI voice activated slowly. Designation confirmed. Target, Galactic Council. Reason, mass murder. Status, vengeance authorized. Ghost Fleet and Luna's dark side. A row of ships floated silently. They had no crew. They had no flags, no identification marks, no signals, not even heat signatures. These were Earth's Ghost Fleet autonomous hunter-killers designed for sabotage, assassination, and orbital disruption. They were never supposed to be used, but now they were being given coordinates. The Council remains, blind back in Council space. The ruling elite remained calm. Their internal channels were full of excuses. It wasn't an official attack. Earth will calm down eventually. We have more ships, more planets, more power. Counselor Vorik stood before his private war committee. He was calm, overconfident. We regret the loss of Celia, he said, but Earth will do nothing. They are emotional creatures. They will weep, but they will not fight. He didn't know that. At that very moment, a Terran stealth drone was orbiting the moon above his head, recording everything. The fleet vanished. It happened, one by one. Entire Earth fleets began to disappear from radar. First, the 3rd Fleet, then the 12th, then the 4th Marine. Orbital division, no signals, no exits, no visible warp trails. The Council's outer sensors didn't detect a thing. They assumed Earth was retreating, but they were wrong. Terran ships had switched to dark dash warp, an experimental jump system that left no trace, no light, no gravity ripples. Earth's fleets weren't retreating. They were already inside Council space, the new orders inside the bridge of the Ashbringer. Admiral Arya Voss studied the war dash map. She had waited 10 days. Now she gave the command. Phase 1. Initiate. Her second-in-command, Captain Idris, nodded. Ghost Fleet ready. First target, listening post Theta 19. Arya didn't blink. Destroy it, no survivors. He hesitated. Ma'am, that post handles civilian comes too. Her eyes turned cold. They killed children. The only language they understand is fire. The Ghost Fleet vanished into the black. A whisper before the storm. A quiet world named Celis. A council governor enjoyed his evening wine. He lived in a city of floating towers and glowing gardens. A paradise. But tonight, something strange happened. All his lights flickered. A cold wind swept through the room. His datapad buzzed one unread message. He opened it. Only one word appeared on the screen. Celia. Then his tower exploded. Council. Response begins to Lethe next day. Panic swept across the Council's inner circles. For Outer List. The Treaty of Coronine had lasted 80 years. It was signed after the Blood Cycle Wars, created to stop another galaxy-wide conflict. All major powers, including Earth and the Galactic Council, had agreed. No warships in civilian sectors, no attacks without clear declaration, and no use of banned weapons like orbital, kinetic strikes. But treaties only matter when both sides respect them. The Council had broken that treaty first, when they wiped out the Celians. Now Earth no longer cared about rules written by those who murdered children. After Myreth, images of Myreth's destruction spread fast. One moment the planet had clear skies, cities full of life, transport ships rising from the ports. Then the sky tore open. Massive rods black silent fell from orbit at terminal velocity. They weren't nukes. They had no energy signature, just mass, speed, and gravity. The first rod cracked the central mountain. The second one crushed the energy grid. By the time the third fell, there was no organized response left. Millions died in minutes. It was brutal. It was silent. It was human council. Denial. The council gathered in emergency session. Anger, confusion, fear. It was all there. Councillor Vurick stood in the center of the massive chamber, his scaled hands raised for silence. Earth has gone too far, he said, voice hard. We must bring them to heel. They are one planet. We are an empire. Others murmured in agreement. But then Councillor Shavrin, a feline-like diplomat from the Hadari system, stood and spoke coldly. We went too far first. Celia was our ally too. You told us it was pirates, Vurick, you lied. A silence fell over the hall. Something was breaking. Earth's replied that same night. Every council system received a small encrypted message from Earth. It read, to the Galactic Council, you burned Celia, you covered it up, you silenced the voices of peace. This is not war. This is the consequence. We are not seeking conquest. We are here for names. Those who gave the order will be found. Step aside, or fall with them. Signature. No broadcast. Just coordinates. The names. Terran intelligence had already pieced together the truth. Over 400 council officers were involved in the attack on Celia. Some gave orders, some approved plans, some simply stood by and let it happen. Now, Earth had their names. One by one, they were hunted. General Rovak was found on a mining colony. His transport ship exploded seconds after takeoff. Admiral Morelli was ambushed mid-lecture at the Council Academy, killed instantly by a plasma dart, fired through a window no shooter ever found. High Judge Trana died in her sleep. No wounds, just a short-circuited life support system. Every time a small chip was found at the scene, burned into the surface were two simple words, Celia. The tension grows. By now, council citizens were afraid. Many started asking the same question, why did we attack the sea lanes for the first time? The official story didn't hold up. Council leaders said, it was pirates, but pirates don't glass a peaceful world. Pirates don't use official war fleets. Pirates don't kill an entire species with precision. Orbital fire. The truth was leaking. And with it came anger. Inside the human fleet aboard the Terran warship Retribution, Captain Lynn Reyes studied the latest data. 15 targets eliminated, 16 more identified, 17 suspected collaborators under observation. His orders were clear. Do not hit innocent worlds. Do not fire unless confirmed. But when you fire, end it. He stared at the newest name on the list, Commander Velix, the officer who ordered the bombing run on the Celian Capitol Dome. She was now stationed on a council diplomatic cruiser, protected by 6 escort ships. Too bad. Reyes gave the command. All hands to battle stations. Next jump. The council's retaliation fleet. The council responded with force. 3 fleets were sent toward the human frontier, not for diplomacy, for war. At their head was Fleet Commander Drell, famous for his brutal campaigns against pirate clans. He stood aboard the battleship Judicator, teeth bared, find Earth's forward fleet, destroy them, make an example. His ships moved in tight formation, dozens of cruisers, carriers, and destroyers. The first clash. The council fleets entered a system called Juno Reach. A Terran forward base was stationed there, small, old, barely defended, or so it seemed. Moment the council's sensors went active. 3 Terran ships decloaked from a nearby asteroid field. Then 3 more. Then 15. Within seconds, the Terran fleet was everywhere. Where did they come from? Shouted Drell. He never got an answer. Terran war doctrine. Earth's war tactics had changed. No formations, no declarations, no declarations. Terran ships moved like ghosts, diving through enemy lines, jamming sensors, cutting power, boarding and deleting AI cores. When one ship took damage, 3 others covered it. When council cruisers tried to retreat, Terran hunter drones followed them into hyperspace and ripped them apart from the inside. It was not a battle, it was a lesson. Fleet Commander Drell's last message was picked up in static. They're not fighting to win. They're fighting to make us regret. Council panic. News of the fleets. Destruction reached the council capital within hours. 600 ships lost. 0 human casualties reported. The council's public networks went into lockdown. Propaganda blamed advanced Terran AI hacking and combat drugs, but the people didn't believe it anymore. And then Earth did something unexpected. The broadcast Earth sent one final open message. Not a threat, not a demand, just a video footage of Celia Prime before the attack. Celian children laughing. Markets full of life, a choir singing in the capital. Then darkness, a slow pan across the blackened ruins, the sound of wind over ashes. Then a human voice spoke. This is what you chose, this is what you allowed. We do not hate your people, but we will find the ones responsible. We will not stop. Cliffhanger. Somewhere deep in space, the Ashbringer waits in dark orbit above a secret council weapons lab. Inside that lab is proof clear. Orders from Councillor Vurick authorizing the Celian attack, but the lab is heavily guarded. Admiral Voss watches from her command bridge. She turns to her crew. We go in silent, we come out loud. Load the breach pods. The lights dim, the war isn't over, it's just getting personal. The blackness above the Council weapons lab was perfect. No stars, no movement, no sound, just space. Waiting, but hiding in that silence was death. Earth's most dangerous warship, the Ashbringer, remained still in dark orbit, its systems cold, its hull silent. It had watched the Council lab for 3 days. No signal sent, no weapons fired. Inside the lab were documents, real proof that Councillor Vurek and his circle had planned the destruction of Celia Prime. That lab had to fall, and Earth wasn't going to ask for permission. Inside, the Beast Admiral Arya Voss stood in the command deck of the Ashbringer wearing black armor marked with no flag. She wasn't smiling. She never did. In front of her, a holomap showed the lab station, 3 defense rings, 200 security drones, and over 5,000 Council troops inside. This wasn't just a lab, it was a fortress. Status of breach pods, she asked. Calmly. Captain Idris checked his console. Loaded, Marines, ready. They'll land directly inside Sector 3's central archives. Voss nodded once. Tell them we want files, not prisoners. The strike begins. The Ashbringer didn't fire its main cannon. It didn't launch torpedoes. Instead, it opened small side hatches like a shadow breathing. 8 black pods shot out, silent as ghosts, drifting across space. Each pod carried 10 Terran Marines. Elite, silent, deadly. The pods drifted past the first sensor ring undetected, then past the second. As they reached the third ring, a defense drone turned toward them. 1 beep. 2. Then static. The drone went dark, hacked in microseconds by Earth's quantum AI. No alarm was raised. The pods slammed into the lab hull and cut through the metal like knives. The first strike had begun. Inside the lab council, technicians were working as usual, organizing files, running tests, unaware of the deaths entering their walls. Then the lights flickered, the doors sealed shut, and from the ceiling, metal claws pulled it open. 10 black armored humans dropped in. They didn't speak, they didn't hesitate. The first guard lifted his weapon. A burst of plasma hit his chest before he could blink. Terran Marines moved like shadows, each step calculated, each shot clean. They used stun rounds on scientists. And something worse for soldiers, the objective inside the archives. Commander Lynn Reyes led his team. His orders were clear. Find the files labeled Operation Ember. That was the code name for the Celia attack. He moved through smoke and alarms, scanning files while his team held off incoming security. Suddenly, click. He found it, a crystal drive. Cold and humming. He connected his wrist link. Dozens of Council orders appeared. Signed documents, Vorek's name, military approvals. Reyes didn't smile, but he said one word: confirmed. Then a blast shook the wall behind him. Time to leave. Council reinforcements arrived 10 minutes later. A massive Council fleet dropped out of warp. They'd picked up faint signals something wasn't right. The lab was on fire. Security drones were crashing. No response from command. They were too late. From behind the dark side of the lab, Ashbringer lit up. Its engines roared, its cannons glowed, and in seconds, it unleashed fire. The dreadnought's power. The Ashbringer had one job: to punish. Its first volley of kinetic rounds hit the lead Council ship before it could even raise shields. Hull breached, crews scattered into space. The second ship tried to flank Ashbringer, fired a swarm of tracking warheads. The ship spun once, then exploded in 3 clean pieces. The rest of the fleet started retreating, not fighting, retreating. That's when they realized it's not a warship. The TSS Valiant exited slipspace like a blade tearing through the stars. It was the first of Earth's warships to reach Celian space. Captain Ria Vasquez stood at the main viewport, eyes locked on the swirling debris that used to be a peaceful world. Celia Prime was gone, reduced to glowing ash and cracked orbit. The death of their closest allies was not a message. It was a challenge. Behind her, the bridge crew was silent. The weight of what they saw needed no words. Commander Elias gritted his teeth. They didn't even try to hide it. The orbital bombardment signatures are clear. It was Council warships, multiple destroyers, 1 dreadnought. Ria's voice was cold. They knew we'd see this. They wanted us to. But Earth hadn't sent just 1 ship. The Valiant was the first of many. Within hours, 5 more Terran warships dropped into the system. Silent, patient, like wolves circling a blood-soaked battlefield. In orbit, they found ghosts. The remains of Celian defense satellites floated aimlessly. No survivors, no escape. Ships, just wreckage. But then, a faint signal, Captain. A technician shouted, picking up something. Faint distress beacon, buried under a collapsed moon fragment. Location. Ria barked. They launched a stealth drone immediately. What it found wasn't a ship but a vault. Celian scientists had hidden a memory core before the destruction. It wasn't much, but it was enough. The crew watched in silence as the recovered data streamed in. Images of the Council fleet entering orbit, civilians screaming, Celian ships trying to flee, and then white light, planet-wide strikes. Everything erased, but something else stood out. Freeze frame, Elias ordered. Back it up. Right there. The recording paused on a strange symbol painted on one of the Council destroyers, a burning triangle with a black sun inside. Ria narrowed her eyes. That's not standard council insignia. No, Elias replied. That's the Inquisitorial Division. Back on Earth, the Assembly of Fury, while the Valiant gathered intel, Earth's United Military Command was no longer hiding in shadow. Terran forces across the solar system were fully mobilized. Orbital yards built ships non-stop. Old war machines were awakened. Even prototypes previously considered too dangerous were activated. At Terran High Command, General Merrick stood before the holotable, surrounded by the Earth Defense Council. They murdered the Sealdians. We've confirmed orbital patterns, weapon signatures, and now this San Inquisitor mark. This wasn't an accident. It was a sanctioned cleansing. What about the Council's response? A diplomat asked. Merrick turned toward him. They say nothing, not even a denial. They're daring us. He looked around the table. Well, let's respond. Operation Starshield back in space. The Valiant received its orders: hold orbit, defend any survivors or hidden assets, and prepare for a classified reinforcement. Hours later, that reinforcement arrived, stepping silently from deep space. The TSS Revenant. It wasn't just a warship. It was Earth's Black Ops Ghost Fleet flagship, stealthed, nuclear-powered, rumored to be able to phase through orbital sensors. Captain Rhea had never seen it in real life. Now it hovered beside them, its surface rippling like it was half in another dimension. Commander Elias whispered. They sent the Revenant. This just got serious. On board the Revenant, a man in dark armor stepped onto the command deck. No insignia, no name, just a call sign, Reaper 1. Silence before the strike. Meanwhile, in a distant council outpost, Sector Theta 202, the local admiralty was getting nervous. They had received no formal warning from Earth. No threats, no transmissions, just radio, silence, until one of their patrol ships vanished, then another, and another. All along the edge of Terran patrolled space, something was happening. Ships disappearing. Listening posts going dark. No traces, no escape pods. The Council began to panic, but Earth still said nothing. Back on the Valiant, Captain Rhea received her next set of orders. She opened the sealed document and read the words, Phase 2 approved. Proceed with Justice Protocol. Do not negotiate, do not explain. Show them what silence means. Suspense ending. As the Council scrambled to understand what was happening, as military leaders bickered and senators demanded answers, one message was intercepted by a deep space probe on the edge of their territory. It was a single line, encrypted, in old Terran code. You silenced our friends, now hear us roar. Moments later, an entire Council logistics station disappeared. No warning, no alarms, just gone. The Terran War had officially begun. Cliffhanger, and this was just Earth's opening move. Third-person simple English suspenseful HFY sci-fi revenge tale. Beacon 9 orbited the moon of Callus 4. Like a silent sentinel, it monitored, jumped lanes, guided civilian traffic, and controlled half the outer defense network of Council space. No entry or exit without its permission. To the Council, it was untouchable. To Earth, it was the key. Approach in darkness. The Vindicator drifted, in dark warp just outside the moon's magnetosphere. Inside her bridge, Admiral Aria Voss studied the holomap of Beacon 9. Every gun emplacement, every shield generator, every power conduit. No Council fleet guarded the station. Its defenses lay in 2 concentric shield rings and 90 automated turrets, all running on a centralized power core. Aria tapped her console. Ghost Fleet in position. Her tactical officer nodded. All drones are cloaked. They'll phase through the shields in 3 minutes. Countdown, she ordered. Her voice was calm, like announcing a routine drill. But every officer on the bridge felt the tension crackle. T-minus 180 seconds. Silencing the guns on the dark side of the moon. 6 Ghost Fleet corvettes loomed like wraiths. Each ship carried swarms of stealth drones the size of small birds, but dressed in metal armor and armed with micro-EMP warheads. With a single command, the corvettes released their drones. They darted toward Beacon 9's outer ring, invisible to radar. Inside the station, the turrets hummed and abruptly died. No warning, no alarm, just silence. Outer shields offline, the tactical officer reported. Confirmed, came the drone controller's voice. Next swarm to inner ring. T-minus 90 seconds. The central core hack in orbit above the station. A stealth frigate named Nightwind launched its own strike. A single quantum hacker probe. It dove toward Beacon 9's dataport with no signature. Once attached, it burrowed into the station's power grid. On the Vindicator, Aria watched streams of code flicker across her display. Power core integrity at 60%. 20 shields offline. Moments later, the inner shield ring collapsed. Beacon 9 lay open, its turrets dark, its golden domes unprotected. T-minus 30 seconds. Descent of the Marines below decks on the Vindicator. 15 Terran Marines stood ready in drop suits. Their helmets bore no insignia, only blacked-out visors. Each carried a magnetic grapnel, breaching charges, and kinetic rifles. Lieutenant Marin Silva checked her squad. We go in quiet, get the core access, and get out. No targets of opportunity. Move fast. The drop hatch opened. In silence, they launched toward the station. Infiltration Beacon 9's corridors were designed to filter out intruders, airlocks, patrol drones, biometric locks, but Terran Marines had prepared. Silver's team cut through the first door with a plasma torch. They moved in single file, keeping to the walls. Every corner they rounded, every corridor they entered, they breached and sealed behind them. No alarms, no gunfire. Inside comes crackled. Central corridor, 50 meters ahead. Copy on my mark. Silence. Central archives. They reached the archives chamber in under 2 minutes. The main vault door stood before them, reinforced alloy, council-grade lock. Silver dropped the grapnel-attached breaching charges and backed away. 3, 2, 1, boom. The door gave in. Metal bent outward. The Marines stormed in, rifles raised. Inside, rows of crystal drives glowed in racks. Captain Lynn Reyes awaited them. He held a data drive labeled Beacon 9 log. Reyes inserted the drive into his wrist link. Files spilled across his HUD. Holographic records of council orders, shift reports, and crew logs all passed before his eyes. 3:14. Strike initiated. 3:17. Civilian ships diverted. 3:20. Shields at critical. Reyes read the line that mattered, an order signed by Councillor Vorek himself, authorizing orbital bombardment of Celia Prime and all collaborators. His jaw tightened. Got it, he whispered. Valiant. We're clear. Extraction in 2 minutes. Beacons fall above. The Ashbringer and to support dreadnoughts opened fire. They used kinetic rods calibrated for structural collapse rather than mass destruction. The first rod struck the station's central power core housing, cracking it open like an egg. Lights flickered, then went out. The station shuddered. Inside, the Marines knew time was up. Alpha Team to Vindicator. We have the files. Exfil in 60 seconds. Copy, Aria replied. Ghost Fleet pods launching. Above orbit, hundreds of small extraction pods shot out from the corvettes. One by one, they docked with the station's hull and pulled the Marines to safety. Behind them, Beacon 9 began to break apart. Explosions ran through the corridors. The station's outer ring collapsed. Turrets fell into space like dark flowers wilting. Then the core gave in. An implosion sucked the rest of the station inward, leaving only twisted metal and drifting data shards. Council shock in council. The space sensors picked up the fall of Beacon 9. The messages came too fast to ignore. Station offline. No survivors detect. The stars above Celia's ruins flickered with firelight. What was once a peaceful world had now become a battleground, filled with wreckage, bodies, and silent rage. The Terran fleet stood in perfect formation. Massive ships shaped like daggers, with hulls dark as space itself, floated around the broken world. No music played, no transmissions. Earth didn't explain. Earth didn't warn. They had come for justice. Captain Myra Rourke stood on the bridge of the TNS Vindicator. Her jaw clenched. Around her, crew members waited, watching the incoming data. Council ships had begun to gather again. Reinforcements. More weapons, more arrogance. But Earth had predicted that. This is what we wanted, Myra said coldly. Let them come. Commander Vesk, the sole Celian survivor, still lay in the medical bay, his wounds healing slowly. But his mind, his pain was wide awake. He knew what was about to happen. The way they will not stop, he whispered. The Council will burn every world that questions them. Mira looked at him. Good, then we'll give them a reason to stop. Above the Celian system, Council Admiral Revok stared at the growing Terran fleet on his screen. He sneered. Fools, you came alone. Now you'll vanish just like the Celians. He ordered his fleet forward, hundreds of cruisers, dreadnoughts, and fighters, a full sector armada. But then something changed. One by one, Earth's warships moved aside, deliberately, quietly. And from behind them, something massive began to rise from the shadows of Celia's shattered moon. A shape, a weapon, a ship so large it blocked the stars behind it. Admiral Revok's voice caught in his throat. That's not a battleship. One of his officers whispered. That's a mobile fortress. It was Project Nemesis, Earth's most secret weapon, built in the darkness of deep space, hidden behind decoys and false signals. The trap was set. The Galactic Council hadn't been lured into a battle. They had been lured into an execution chamber, back on the Vindicator. Mira gave the final order. All units, she said softly, engage. What followed wasn't a battle. It was a slaughter, but this time, not Earth's allies, not the Celians. This time it was the Council fleet that burned. Hundreds of missiles rained through the vacuum. Railguns tore ships apart in silence. EMP bombs disabled entire wings before they could fire a shot. And from above, Nemesis let loose a focused beam so bright it pierced 3 Council dreadnoughts clean through. Minutes passed, then silence. The Council fleet was gone. Floating debris. Fire. No survivors. Only a single message was sent back to the Council's homeworld. You wanted war. You got it. Cliffhanger ending for Part 7. As the battlefield cooled, Mira looked at the transmission logs. Something odd. A faint signal. From deep space. Not Council. Not friendly. Unknown origin. She asked. Her officer nodded. It's not coming from any known system, but it's heading directly for Earth. Mira stared out the viewport. Prepare the fleet, she whispered. The war had just begun. The stars were burning. Every ship in the Terran fleet had a single target. The Galactic Council's war factories on Korvax Prime. It was the last stronghold, the heart of Council military power, shielded by planetary cannons, orbital platforms, and a fleet larger than any seen in the war so far. But the humans didn't flinch. They didn't turn dots because behind them was the memory of the Celians, because in front of them stood the enemy who had laughed at mercy. Commander Rain stood at the bridge window, arms folded. Behind her, the screen displayed final combat data. Dozens of Council ships had already fallen across the system, but now the real battle would begin. Status, she asked. Supercarrier TNS Justice ready. Dreadnought line holding position. Strike wings, waiting for green light, said LT Vargas. Rain nodded once. No more warnings, no more chances. Begin the final assault. Down below on Korvax Prime, panic had already begun. Council governors tried to flee. Others begged for surrender talks, but Earth had gone silent, just like the Celians before they died. Orbital alarms screamed as Terran warships descended like falling stars. Massive kinetic rods dropped from space. No energy signatures, no warning, just pure velocity and mass. The first rod smashed into a Council command dome, erasing it in an instant. The second wiped out the power grid for the planetary shields. The third broke their orbital cannon array. Then the Justice arrived. Aboard the Terran supercarrier, silence filled the halls. There were no cheers, no shouting, just precision, purpose, unity. Every soldier knew why they were here, targeting command tower, firing ion lances. A flash of light brighter than the sun lit the surface of Korvax Prime. The beam carved through reinforced alloys like paper. Every Council officer in the tower died instantly, one by one. Their systems went dark, their ships broke formation, and Earth didn't stop. The Galactic Council's last admiral sent one final message. We surrender, we surrender. We were following orders. The Celian extermination was not our choice. The Terran response came not as a voice but as data. It was the original Celian distress call, the screams, the static, the silence. Then Earth responded with its final weapon. Project Deliverance. A Terran dreadnought the size of a small moon exited slipspace. It had one purpose, orbital cleansing. The Council planet Korvax Prime was consumed by fire. The war ended that day. 1 year later, the Galactic Council no longer existed. What remained of its species formed the new accord, where peace wasn't optional, it was enforced. Earth didn't take control. They didn't demand tribute. They simply said, if you ever harm the weak again, you won't see us coming next time. And then Earth vanished from the political stage again, silent, watchful, and ready. Final scene. A small Celian memorial floats in space. It bears no weapons, no shields, just a beacon. On it, etched in both Terran and Celian script, are the words they thought kindness was weakness. But Earth remembered. The Galactic Council's core fleet stood ready near the capital world of XERON-9. Hundreds of dreadnoughts, thousands of cruisers, defense platforms wrapped around the planet like armor. Every inch of space was filled with weaponized satellites and shield generators. The Council leaders watched from the safety of their command spire, smug and calm. Earth won't dare attack us directly, said High Strategist Vortic. They fear war, they always have. But that wasn't true because Earth was already coming, and this time they weren't sending messages. They were sending the Armada orbit above Jupiter. Terran military staging zone Admiral Unigraves stood on the bridge of the TNS Revenant, Earth's newest supercarrier. The hull was dark and jagged, more like a blade than a ship. It had no nameplates, no lights, no insignia, only silence. It drifted beside two other massive Terran vessels, Judgment and Silent Hammer. Across her viewscreen, over 100 Terran warships powered up their weapons. Jump drives online. Her reported Una said only one word, go, and space tore apart. The Council's war orbit. Minutes later, the defense grid was ready. Dozens of alien commanders shouted into comms, tracking movement, scanning for Terran activity. But nothing appeared. No signal, no energy spike. Just silence. Then suddenly the stars blinked. A shadow passed across the moons. Something huge, something fast, something terrifying. And then, without warning, the sky exploded. Terran ships ripped into real space. Weapons hot, engines screaming. Massive kinetic rounds launched before the enemy could even react. Dozens of Council cruisers exploded before anyone could return fire. The Terran supercarrier Judgment dropped straight through the Council defense grid and fired its orbital rail cannons. A single shot tore through a planetary shield and shattered a Council weapons platform the size of a city. The aliens panicked. Where did they come from? Why weren't they detected? Fire, fire, everything. But it was already too late. Inside the Council command spire, High Strategist Vortic slammed a fist against the control panel. The war map was blinking red. Dozens of Terran strikes would have already hit critical defense points. How are they doing this? He barked. A junior officer turned, pale and shaking. They're not using traditional FTL. They're bending reality. They're what? The officer whispered. It's like they're jumping between the folds of space itself. We can't track them. Vortic's hearts dropped. This wasn't war. This was slaughter. Earth had become something else. On the surface of 09, the citizens of the Council's capital ran for shelter as sonic booms shattered glass across every building. Terran ships streaked across the sky like angry meteors. Anti-A guns opened fire, but Terran drones dodged with perfect precision, weaving through towers, slamming into hangars and fuel depots. One old alien general stepped onto his balcony and looked up at the chaos. His skin was gray with age, his metals polished. He had fought in 13 wars, but this was different. He turned to his aide and said, "This is what happens when you push deathworlders too far." Then a Terran rail round struck the horizon, and the capital's defense station vanished in a fireball. Aboard the TNS Revenant Tuna watched the battlefield in silence. Her expression didn't change. A voice came through the comms. It was Admiral Ortega from the Silent Hammer. Request permission to begin Phase 2. Una nodded approved. They took our allies. We take their empire. Phase 2 wasn't about ships, it was about information warfare. Terran AI viruses spread across Council systems like wildfire. Banking networks collapsed. Planetary communications failed. Targeting systems shut down mid-battle. Entire fleets were blinded, crashing into asteroids or firing blindly into their own escorts. And then, something worse. One by one, the Council's outer colonies went dark. Because they weren't just being attacked, they were being occupied. Terran Marines landed silently, without warning, and took control within hours. No speeches, no threats, just swift, cold precision. The survivors warning back on Earth. The only Celian survivor on Dal had finally awakened, still wrapped in bandages. He was wheeled to the central command chamber of Terran High Command. When he saw the holograms of Earth's attack across the galaxy, he whispered, "You're destroying them." General Hayes nodded. Double quotes. "They destroyed your people. We don't forget." UN blinked back, tears not of sorrow, but of relief. "You are monsters," he said. Hayes looked at him. Double quotes. "No, we're just humans." Suspense ending cliffhanger back near the Council capital. The remaining alien fleets regrouped around their last command station. They prepared for a desperate final counterattack, but then something enormous dropped into orbit, larger than any ship ever seen. That it wasn't listed in Terran Navy records, no name, no ID. It hovered silently and then began to charge. The light from its weapon was so bright, it turned the night sky to dawn. Someone whispered on the Council command bridge. "What is that?" A Terran signal played, only once, across all frequencies. "Retribution-class weapon online. Targeting complete. To be continued." The stars trembled as the Terran fleet advanced. What began as justice had now become something more, a storm sweeping across Council's space. In every system touched by the Council's blood-stained rule, Earth's warships appeared, not as invaders, but as executioners. The name no longer meant human to the galaxy, it meant vengeance. Command Bridge. TSS Judicator Admiral Reyes stood before the large tactical display, arms crossed. His voice was cold. "They burned a peaceful world. They thought we'd forget. They were wrong." On the display, 10 enemy fleets lit up reddish, preparing to intercept Earth's forces near the core worlds. Fleet Commander Mavic, the CT survivor, looked on from his seat beside Reyes. His breathing was steadier now, his voice returning with strength. "If we break their last line, the Council falls." Reyes gave a short nod. "Then we break it." Meanwhile, Galactic Council Central Defense Zone panic ruled the Council chambers. Their generals shouted over each other. Their senators screamed for safety, but there was no safety anymore. The Terrans weren't stopping, and worse, they weren't responding to any surrender attempts. "We offered reparations. We'll send diplomats. They're not listening." One aged senator whispered in horror, "Because we already showed them who we are. And now they're showing us who they've become." The final stand. Exera Verge system. It was the last defense before the Council's capital world. 10 Council fleets waited. Thousands of ships, carriers, planet killers. They watched the long-range scanners, and then they saw it. The Terran fleet was bigger than before. Behind the Judicator came TSS Revenant, Experimental Stealth Dreadnought, TSS Spearfall, Kinetic Lance Battleship, TSS Horizon Mobile Command, Citadel, the Celian survivors' own refitted ships. Now under Terran colors, every ship burned white-hot in combat readiness. Battle begins. The sky exploded. Terran ships didn't slow down. They punched through the enemy like a storm through glass. The Council's admirals shouted orders, screamed for regrouping, but it was useless. Terran AI-driven targeting systems were too fast, their railguns too accurate, their shields too resilient. One by one, the Council lines shattered. Judicator Bridge, mid-battle arrays, stared at the collapsing enemy. "Send a single transmission," he said. A comms officer looked up. "What should it say, sir?" Reyes didn't hesitate. "No more warnings." The final blow was the last Council dreadnought attempted escape. Spearfall's kinetic lance charged. It fired. The beam punched through the dreadnought's core, snapping it in half. A bright light washed across the battlefield, then silence. No enemy ships remained. The Council's defenses were gone. Hours later, orbit above Council Prime, the planet's surface was visible now. Their capital, their grand cities. Reyes looked down from orbit. Do we fire? Mavic, quiet all this time, stepped forward. His eyes, once full of pain, were calm. No, let them live. And remember. Reyes nodded. Instead of fire, Earth dropped a single satellite into low orbit. It began broadcasting one message to the entire galaxy. Earth responds to cruelty. We do not forget, we do not forgive, and we are not afraid. Epilogue. In the months that followed, the Galactic Council collapsed. The remaining members were arrested. Their armies disbanded. But something strange happened. Worlds once afraid of Earth now looked to it for protection. Allies formed. Treaties signed. Earth became more than a world. It became a shield for the weak and a nightmare for tyrants. And the civilians. They rebuilt with Terran help. Their children learned Terran history, and they knew when their world cried out, humans answered.